up. And this is where he's just on the hunt for information. Figure out where Putrick actually went and try to get him out of this lobby altogether.
Yeah, last time around we saw Malibuka almost just sort of run in and look to close things out. Putrick doing the same, but working with a lot more HP than Malibuka was last game. And Malibuka not working with much at all either. Needs to go to the stun track and break it, but if they do right now, it will work in Putrick's favor. So Thomas will just deal the damage that needs to be done. He's obviously the one that picked up that shotgun and only has the one pellet left. So doing the business there, Thomas.
I just saw it in the minimap. Vacant just landing some shots, and you can see where I'm just battling for the swords.
What on earth?
Honestly, you know, that's a mini game within Fortnite right now. He just pushed him out altogether. That is what you call using the kinetic blades for outside of the box thinking.
That is Fortnite. This is why we play.
That happened to me yesterday.
You shouldn't admit to that happening to you, by the way. You shouldn't tell anybody.
I blame Caster Lash, man. He let me down. We landed there. He got the sword. I didn't. He left me. He left me out dry. It's all right. We got some VRs after that. So that could be a preface of something here. Go down to kinetic blades. You come back. You try again. Maybe you get a VR. Kashi's by himself. But he's fighting back in 1v1 versus Teeny, who's not afraid to go for the mantle and finish that one off. Well-played shot with Havoc, and then quickly switch on over to Twin Mag to finish that one up. Not too many teams nearby, which means he's going to get his teammate back in no time.
I do want to unfortunately say that I did notice that Twy and Jalen's went down in the feed, so I'm sure Miniman is somewhere crying right now.
Yeah. Lox getting pushed back, getting pushed off by himself as well. You're going to see how he's really able to defend himself. A huge sneak attack. Gets the first knock on the Flopper fan. Back to back at that. Now that is one hard-earned fight.
Ooh, what do we have there? Look. We're at Slappy Shores. It was a bit quieter last time we were here at Slappy Shores. This time round, Vika and Kylie, they're the ones being forced to the north side, while Further Science Nazi on the south, a bit of a role reverse.
Interesting to see them just kind of poking for more shots. Anything when it comes to Storm Surge, very, very early on. First circle, kind of center for everybody else. Very slight southern pull to it. Got to imagine this one is going to continue to go south, and hopefully a lot of these teams done their homework, trying to plan ahead when it comes to where these zones are going to pull, but from one 1v2 to another, definitely has his work cut out for him. He's hot on the run. He's trying to go for those launch pads to try to get out. He's going to go ahead and hit it, but the shields are just getting drained, and there goes Alfinzi and Howley going to finish that one off. That's only one elimination, though, and not a ton of Storm Surge.
Yeah, they'll need to do a lot more than just that. They want to continue along with this game for Kaizen and Vox. Over here at the Brutal Bastion, of course, the winners of that first game. Doing it in impressive fashion with Vox. Really strutting their stuff around that lobby. Of course, winning their heal off towards the end. But now, switching pace for them as they hop into a fight here at Bastion. They want to control this POI. They want to control the vaults that comes with it. And you've got to get rid of all your competition here to do that successfully.
They really just pushed this team that had already a tower built with no fear, almost as if there's no consequences, but it has to show the confidence. Kind of oozing over from game one here into game two. High card's going to spawn. Nobody has to go for it right out of the gate. You can't get distracted. Kaizen and Vox are doing a good job of forcing their players and opponents down to the low ground. It's just a swapping position. They just wanted the card first, saying, hey, if you guys want this, they're going to have to go through us. We're the new vault boss.
Yeah, these guys are going to have just the best possible loot. Like, everything's going to be absolutely perfect for them. Their POI is also the gold POI this game, right? So they're going to have those sort of drones flying about that they can take shots at, pick up even more loot if they want to, if they're feeling greedy and whatnot.
Be the first team they immediately run over. And this is where their opponents, now the decision's theirs. Do you contest for it? Do you try to hold them in? Do you disengage, maybe return later on in the game and try to get the scraps that's left behind? Who knows, but only time will tell as Queasy, Veno, Kind of very, very usual business for them over towards Kinjitsu Crossing. Not too many teams contesting them, so they have to look outward for their search.
I think the scary thing about that team is that that's a game that you probably say isn't one of their best in the sense of, you know, one of them is down. They was relying on the other to solo clutch, and yet they still did so well, right? Sitting in the top 5 after that one. So it's a very, very consistent team that will find their way high up in the standings regardless of the circumstances, it seems.
This is where you got to be careful, though. We've seen this one too many times. Link and PKR trying to learn from that last game. Same could be said for Shadow and Nyrox, who takes a big tag, but that's just going to be a trade, shield for shield. Link just living with just a sliver of HP as Shadow and Nyrox doing a good job of firing off those shots simultaneously, trying to build a bigger punch and more damage to be dealt. They finally get into the box and take down one, leaving PKR by himself. He was one of the original players that was weak and with very little chance. He's getting pushed further and further with his back up against the wall, and Shadow is just relentless, not letting him out of his sight. But there goes the first defensive shot and a massive one from PKR into survival.
And there's another team coming in. It's Rovis and Raxi.
Uh-oh.
They're looking to third party.
This is one of those situations, though, for PKR, surviving here, trying to last as long. And he's almost kind of hoping that they're coming into third party, distract that duo. That way he can have a safer rotation or an easier time to disengage on out.
Yeah, that third party, though, does leave them be for the meantime. But Shadox and Nyrox did a good job. Can they continue that good work? What do we have here? Bad Sniper and DKS over at Shattered Slabs in the midst of a fight, and Bad Sniper doing the business. 2 limbs for his troubles, and now they will be able to loot up this vault.
That's a huge win for them. Getting all the scrap, getting all the loot. The gold is so important for them as well. It's going to allow them to re-roll and get their perfect chance, I should say, at augments. The choice is definitely going to be theirs, though. And this is where you can kind of see they also have that choice. Do you split the gold, or do you leave it onto one person?
Yeah, but the one thing that I think will definitely be something to keep an eye on, right? The longer they stay in that storm, the more ticks they take.
Oh, good point.
The less room they have to work with when it comes to a heal-off and storm sickness. So they'll need to get their loot and gold as quickly as possible and get out of there. Zone again pulling towards this sort of southern area. That will definitely benefit the likes of Queasy and Vino, who obviously learned that Kinjitsu. For Mappy and Apex Mappy, they didn't have the worst of games last time around. It's good to see them back here. For Apex Mappy, he sort of had a rough period in time. Things didn't quite work out for him playing with Mr. Savage last season. And now playing with Mappy, who's an incredibly talented player. This duo, if they can get things working, get things clicking, they certainly could be a force within EU.
His Purse, Default, and Kerbov. That's my cash. That's my loot. Even though it wasn't the Legendary Edition, like we're seeing here, where Mr. Savage and Fadil can kind of bolster their loadout, it's definitely worth fighting for. You get the heals, which you've seen so many teams utilize to the very last moment. Mr. Savage just beam after beam, and he has the ability to trade those shots, because you can see him immediately turning around and using those shields that he just got.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you'll see teams do when they have those spare heals, right? They just want to be overzealous, right? Be over-ambitious in the way they peak, right? I think back in the day, you look at Fortnite historically, you see the very infamous T2 peaks, right? Where you sort of crouch, you know, you peek up, hit your shot, crouch down. In that situation, Savage doesn't want to do anything like that, right? He's willing to take the damage if it means he can do damage and heal right back up.
Swizzy and Shimoki, though, kind of talking about them. They were first place on the day yesterday. Continuing that over towards today as well.
Winners from last week, right? Winners from last week.
That's what I'm yesterday, last week. Time flies when you're having fun. We didn't even play yesterday. They did, of course. But you can see they're having a much different approach to this game. Before, it was all heal off. It was all outlast everybody else. Now that they realize with the zone changing, that loot, the resources, everything is worth fighting for, at least a little bit more. And there's still 2.5 teams here. I should say 1.5. Curb, Default, one of the first teams that even got pushed over here as Default escaped the fight early on. That might have been a blessing in disguise, because imagine Curb here by himself in this situation. Time will tell if that solo is going to be able to get out alive. I know I see him on the other side. Swizzy must have some sort of knowledge that he's there as they kind of shoot at the same time. Disintegrate the cover. Shot's going to go through. As Swizzy peeking through 2 different teams. He has his eyes set on 2 different targets, able to really multitask to defend his position here, defend all this loot. But in about a minute, Zone's going to begin to force these players in. And with Swizzy and Shimoki and the clear win condition that they used last week, they might try to disengage to not take any ticks from Storm, so that way they can use all that for the heal off in the end.
Yeah, and that was probably the most impressive thing about them, how they were just always a threat and always a force in those heal off situations. They won 3 of those games last time rounds. Cammy and Seti though on our screens. Last time we saw Cammy was down and Seti was the only one up. This time around, both of them together. When it comes to some of the things going on around the map and some of the loot that we see teams picking up, we have Taco here to update us on what Queasy and Veno have been doing.
That's right, Levin. And with heal-off seemingly being the main point narrative so far here in week number 2, you've got Veno and Queasy doing the best job possible, building right on top of one of these caches, making sure that they can protect all of these resources, all of the loot as much as possible, because they know if they're trying to work their way into Mega City with it being such a hotspot POI, they've got to make sure that they're prepared.
Thank you, Taco. Kind of showing us the whole spectrum of what we're really seeing here when it comes to those caches is players are willing to fight for them, put it all on the line. Some, like Queasy and Veno, it's uncontested. Very, very similar story to their off-spawn bout over towards Kenjutsu Crossing. So it's really a nice treat to kind of see them, no matter if they're pulling zone, not pulling zone, they're still able to get the surge tags anywhere on the map as DKS just gets beamed out of the sky trying to connect Blade from point A to point B, and then you see his opponent, Zangi and Zara, quickly trying to move in and not let that damage go to waste. You can see his boxing up around and taking down options. Bad Sniper's luck comes to an end as Zangi ends up victorious, taking down at least 1. DKS on the other side, though, versus 2. Back-to-back shots. He's doing a good job and able to take down Zara.
Zara putting an end to what would have been a crazy couple of seconds there for Zangi. A brilliant shot he hit.
Oh,
and unfortunately, Zangi goes down as well. DKS getting his revenge after Zara hit one of the nastiest shots we'll see today. It's DKS and Bad Sniper that come out on top.
Seen it in game number 1, and we've seen a very similar play here right before our very eyes. Just huge 1-pumps.
Yeah, and you could see he was actually trying to get out of the box, realized he couldn't, and so just turned around and said, yep, forget it, I'll just fight, and I will win. Brilliantly done there from DKS, of course. You know, we know what he does with that controller in hand. Rarely misses those situations. Thomas and Malabuka, of course, we watched them win their off-spawn fight, and so they do have a chance to survive and live in this game, and better yet, the lobby has made a big mistake, Jacob. You want to know what that mistake is?
I think I see, but I know we're on the same page. Let these people at no home. What is that mistake?
The lobby has allowed Thomas HD to hold on to a pulse rifle, and there's a good chance, obviously, that Malabuka has one as well. Those two, with pulse rifles in hand, are cash money.
It's like get-in-the-box free card. Especially in hands like Thomas, that knows they can turn on that aggression. A drop of a dime as Trulex and Chicho landing some great shots from the distance, but they both have their respective skyscrapers built towards Mega City. Oh, this is going to be a cheesy play right here. We got pizzas, and now we got the extra cheese.
Is Hen going to see it coming? That's the question. They are just going to camp on this cone, anticipating them to walk right through. But Hen and Paco, they're not quite moving yet. They are just taking shots from above, and so Thomas looking eagerly like, where are these guys? Like, why are they not coming yet? Like, what are these kids doing? But no, they're not going to move. They're not going to walk into their trap, and so they will just have to take shots from afar. But that favors them as well. These guys do big damage. Paco very much blocking the path, and there's another team in the zone that will give them that easy shot. And Malabuka just running right on in. Thomas saying, hold on, save some for me.
You can't do that. You can't just give him the pulse rifle to one of the most accurate players in Fortnite history, earning that title about any weapon he puts in his hand, and now you got the ODM causing destruction. Thomas there to clean it all up. 77, first shot not the hardest, so he's gonna have to deal even more damage, but there goes Malabuka to finish that one off. No chance as they continue to fight deep into the storm. They didn't even really need that elimination as they're already sitting over 800 above the damage threshold. It was just bonus. It was just that much extra.
Savage and the deal. Look at that. Nicely done. They take out Hen. Hacker got taken out as well. So brilliant find for all these guys. Mr. Savage obviously played with Hen as well not too long ago, so a bit of revenge there for him, for old time's sake.
This zone, I feel bad for anybody that is not near this zone right now because you got a whole lake of water separating everybody with the farthest pool to any sense of that edge of zone. So if you don't have mobility, heck, if you don't even have those 3 charges of the kinetic blade, it's not going to be as easy as it seems. So you got to have something up your sleeve and ready.
Yeah, the 5 teams you just saw on your screen there, those are the only 5 teams in the zone. Everybody else has to start moving there now. But you have to just get ahead, moving early. If you're one of the first teams to move across, your chances may be better. But the problem is there's players sort of lurking on that, far side that's not on the river, taking shots at everybody trying to cross the river.
This rotation right here from Savage and Vidil is just all experience. As Steno's just stuck in zone, doesn't have HP, 2 different angles. It's only a matter of time, but back to this rotation from Savage. You even throw Queasy and Veno in this mix. This is where the zone was actually at, so they know nobody's here and so far. But as we got a full 3-team breakdown, Vico, Kylie, Queasy, Veno, Mr. Savage, and Vidil all rotating back on over to Kenjutsu Crossing.
Look, you cannot give arguably the best team in the whole of Europe a free zone like this.
Nope.
They're just here in Kenjutsu. They've not had to move all game long. Now, it will mean that they're probably going to be a bit low on search than they would have hoped, and from what we'll see from some of the other teams, but there will be solutions they can take to that. You saw them taking shots at some of the players below them. Queasy will go lurking, venturing in an attempt. But the zone now pulls up just outside of Kenjutsu, and so they will have to make a move there as well towards that 7th zone.
Yep. That's Savage and Vidil. They're going to be one of the first teams of the 3 towards Kenjutsu Crossing, making it to zone. Kylie, Vico, just trying to refarm as much wood as possible. They don't want to wait until they're congested with everybody else trying to refarm, as Bose is able to take down 1. That's Eclipse, who gets sent back to the lobby. Dirty Pingu and Bose just trying to get all of that loot. You see them tossing over med kits. You see them picking up extra splashes, extra minis. So they're just making sure that they have the right loadout ready for this endgame. He's even going ahead and sharing on over the splashes, making sure to leave nothing left behind for any of these teams looking for loot.
Everybody patiently waiting to make the right decision. If you're one of the players in the zone, you're patiently waiting for someone to maybe fly through the sky with their kinetic blade or ODM gear just so you can take some shots at them. That's what Snazy will be doing right here.
32 above the damage threshold, which is absolutely nothing at this stage in the game, which is why they're just trying to put down shots into the distance, disrupt any sense of comfort over on the other side. Eventually something's going to be able to sneak through. Isn't much, but for Snazy and Podesai in the position that they're in is better than nothing. Thomas and Malabuka just finds Kiro just on the outside of zone, trying to build himself an island, runs out of mats and opportunity as he goes down. That's their 5th elimination as a team, 5th overall for Thomas and Malabuka. And that's the interesting thing, 5 eliminations up to this point. You know there's so many more opportunities that will naturally present itself.
Yeah, look at this zone. Max distance pool. They have quite the journey to get there. And a lot of the other players in the lobby do as well. Look at all those teams above them. They are all going to have to make that same rotation. And it is a long one. Mappy and Apex Mappy have quite the distance to go themselves. And not much HP to sort of tank as they make their way through. That shield keg is going to do wonders for them in terms of getting them back up to the right amount of shields. But it doesn't look like they have any sort of white HP, so not going to be able to get themselves up in that regard. And that's definitely not good, especially with the nature of this season and teams trying to play for heal off. These guys need to find something and very, very quickly. A fishing rod was in hand. They wanted to maybe try to fish their way back.
Yeah, you can kind of see them saving augments as well. I'm just hoping that, you know, for their own game, that they have some sort of game time or augment that's going to help them in this situation. As Basib, crazy, trying to rotate 94 above. They know there's so many players jam-packed close together. Opportunity after opportunity is just around every corner. It's about peeking and poking at the right time. They got Vidil, Savage right above. Malibuca and Thomas right below. But high in the sky, Queasy and Veno. And that's what I said last game. With them in the lobby, Kylie and Vico, it's no free high ground for you.
Queasy and Veno sitting in their prime position and just looking for players that they can capitalize and take advantage of. The top two teams coming into this game fell early, and so there is opportunity to usurp that first place slot. And so with Queasy and Vino being where they are, they will certainly look to do that. Oh my goodness. This is why we say they should not be allowed to have pulse rifles. There's even more. I thought that was it. No, they take down Coop as well.
Are we watching? FNC3? Are we watching the Thomas Malibuca highlight reel? Oh man, we got to see that one again. As they're just continuously terrorizing the lobby. I feel like I blinked. Moments ago, they had 5 elims. Now they have 8. Thomas leading the charge, and it's a scary sight because Malibuca, he can come online at any moment.
This is the Thomas Coop mixtape right now. This guy is feeling it, and now they can start to make their way to zone, where they will sit and look for even more players to find, even more players to take down. Savage and Vidil still alive. We saw earlier in that first game when Savage went down and left Vidil in a solo clutch situation. This game, if they can stay together, stay deep in this one, there'll be another threat for Helof.
Threat indeed. Looming around every one of these corners for Sined and Irazumi. Gotta be careful. Storm Surge is not gonna be a worry for them, so you gotta have your eye on the prize. Not make any mistakes, play as close to perfect as possible. Thomas and Malibuca being proactive, destroying builds just outside of their cover. If the zone pulls that way, they're going to be ready. 1,000 above the damage threshold. Very little worries for them, unlike Vico and Kylie, who sits 16 below.
Okay. A little chop comes through, but they will be able to get that together. Just ramping up with the floor stair and wall, and somebody spotted it, decided to try and take a chop at it. Gonna have to reconnect. Thomas has fallen though. After all the hard work he was putting in earlier in this game, it's now Malibuca left as a solo.
Malibuca's someone I know I can trust. Kind of pick up some points, do as much damage as possible. Placement points beginning to set in. You see Mr. Savage and Vidil going for the cheeky play, trying to drop him down, but they're connected somewhere else that they don't see. But now they become the focus. Mr. Savage quickly thinking of a way out, and he takes towards the left side, hovering against the zone, making it that easy to reverse to point A to point B. But Irazumi, hot on his heels, doesn't want to let him escape. And while all that's going down, Malibuca finds a huge knock somewhere else.
Popping off in the backside of the zone is what he'll have to do. But he's going to actually look to Kinetic Blade up and over. He doesn't want to get buried beneath all those teams, but there are 2 players just on the other side of that wall that he has to worry about.
Queasy and Veno holding on, ultimate height. Mr. Savage and Vidil close by. You got to be careful because they don't have that sky base. They don't have that ramp, ultimate in the sky. So a threat for the Kinetic Blade to be looming around every corner as Irazumi and Sined get another one taking down Kyrie, going towards that ultimate low ground, which is a must because they now have very little builds, if any.
Saying Camilo doing just as we've seen them do in many, many different seasons, many different chapters, tarping towards that front side of the zone, being safe, being secure. Savage needs to be careful, needs to catch his bearings just a bit, because the materials are low, and a refresh will have to be found imminently if he has any hope of staying alive in this game.
Malibuca's been doing this around the top 20. 10 duos went down, and he's struggling to pop that slurp juice, which kind of forces out the splashes just a little bit earlier than he'd hoped. Using almost all of them. Queasy Veno, though, sitting pretty towards the high ground. They're going to try to connect plate up, stagger themselves, put themselves in a better spot. While that's going down, Malibuca's using this as an opportunity to land some cheeky damage, but he now has to stay with the zone. He's out of heals, and elimination is a must. A siphon is needed.
And Vino and Queasy, they're being forced to take even far more ticks than they would have wanted to. He's been such a nuisance to height, and he takes down Vino along the way. Malibuca causing problems for the height team. It's Mr. Savage that gets revenge for them, but the damage has already been done. Queasy had to go in for heal off rather early, and he's going to be up against Seti and Cammy, and Synodus to win this one as well. A repeat of what we've seen many a time before. But I don't think Seti and Cammy have enough steam, have enough gas. The difference is, though, Queasy, this is where they land. They land that Kinjutsu. He knew the med miss was there. He can go right back to it and use it for heal off. But Cammy has his own med miss. He has enough time to stay in the game as well. Who will outlast who? Queasy's med miss is coming to an end. Is there any other loot that he can remember being here at Kinjutsu? It doesn't quite seem like it. So it looks like Cammy will walk away with it. A repeat of battles between those two teams, and another time where Cammy and Seti come out on top.
A huge feeling of deja vu like you're speaking about. But unlike last game, Seti and Cammy, they secured that victory. They didn't fall as solos. They had a little bit more focus in this last game, and you could see throughout the course of all that madness, they didn't peek when they didn't have to. They didn't poke any bears. They just went through unnoticed.
Look, when you look at what the meta of this season is, in theory, you look at it and go, this is perfect for Seti and Cammy. It's all about having the discipline to be able to sit patiently, talk through all these zones before winning out the game with a heal-off. And that's exactly what they did. To think, Jacob, this is a team that didn't make it past round 1 last week. They couldn't even make it past round 1. I think me and you could get it past round 1. But nevertheless, they're here in week number 2. And they're winning games. They're showing us why they're one of the best teams in all of EU when they are on it.
And just that last play, you saw it there in the quick highlight. Seti found a med mist on the ground. Instead of using it, he just brought it all over to Cammy, dropped it on the ground, and that was a little bit of a difference. Obviously, there was a full 6-pack of chug splashes and a pizza for him to use, but definitely teamwork making that dream work.
They had all the heals in the world, and it wins them the game, but it's not the only thing that happened. We have some wonderful analysts to break it all down, so we'll send it back to Zeke.
Thank you guys so much. Man, as the casters talked about, this looks a little bit of a repeat. Going down once again, Queasy, Veno up against Seti and Cammy. And you know, that's fine. Hey, look, it's just a week number 2. This isn't the globals yet. If this was globals, I feel like they'd be upset, but it's okay. Second place in this situation, under this context, it's fine.
Yeah, a lot to break down this game. And most importantly, we have to break down. Levin just said that he can make it past the round 1 of an FNCS, so
he's tall.
Not sure what's
he's tall does not help you in Fortnite. I think I am very much aware of that. I've seen his gameplay far too much. I think we're definitely aware of that. But Cammy and Seti, they are back, and I mean, this is good to see. I'm excited to see them performing in this meta in this season because, as Levin mentioned, we hadn't seen them. We didn't see them last week in the finals.
Yeah.
Now they're finally putting on a show for us, and I feel like this is the sort of situation, the sort of meta that will suit them. They're a very adaptive team. They know how to adapt to situations, but more importantly, they're very proactive early on in the game. They can set themselves up for success before the end game has even started. And as Jacob mentioned, they did a really good job of collecting all the heals here.
Yeah, 100%. We have to keep an eye on this duo today because it is actually very, very important for them to place high on that leaderboard. Levin mentioned it. You mentioned it. Not making it past round 1 last week puts them in a bit of a tricky situation when it comes to series points. Starting off game number 2 with a victory royale, that is one way to get up to the top of the leaderboard and get some series points.
And if I could just be nitpicking to do it just a tiny bit, I would just say 2 eliminations, maybe on the tad bit on the low side,
that's
but
That is Cammy
yeah,
Seti.
yeah,
That
it
is
is
them defined.
Exactly. Why don't we take a look at our standings together? How are things shaking out? Remember, this is just game number 2. We have 4 more ahead of us. Queasy and Veno take over that number 1 spot with 116 points. I am not surprised, but as we start to kind of make our way down, Trulex coming right in there.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, another team that kind of came into this game actually as a duo, it's Queasy and Veno, right? Last game we had to see Queasy clutch up, and he did such a great job of that, but we finally got to see them as a duo, and it worked out so great.
Yeah, it really did. I think if they didn't have a good game here, it would have been a bit of a throw because the final zone was right in their backyard, and it's right where they know best. And ultimately, at the end, it actually did work in their favor. But this is a really good game from Queasy and Veno, and this is actually the first time we've seen these zones really have an impact. We saw a big rotation into that 7th zone for Apex Mappy and Mappy himself. Of course, that 8th zone rotation was so brutal for them, and Queasy just noticed that really well and was able to pick up a lot of surge. And you can see it working 1,000 above. And this play right here, Vivid, from Veno was really good.
You know what's actually funny about this endgame and how it kind of worked out for Queasy and Veno? Something that we see a lot this season is that these teams are allowed to just sit all the way on the high ground and not really have to worry about building much because they only have to build one layer and everything like that. But Queasy and Vino got chopped out at least two times that end game, and that's why they were kind of forced into a situation to use some heals and some materials, which is why you can see they were very, very low on those that game.
That was one of my biggest complaints last week, right? Was why are we just allowing these duos to just freely have these sky bases, take them down, make them have to use their resources? And it works out kind of in a big way here in the game so far as we kind of look back on our standings. I mean, as we kind of start to go down, you can see Seti Kami up in that 5th place. They've jumped up 13 spaces to now contest top 5.
Yeah, 100%. I think that I also want to point out kind of Mr. Savage and Vidal.
Yeah,
when we kind of check this out, right? You talked about how tough that Zone 6 was. Well, Mr. Savage and Vidal, along with Queasy and Vino, were actually one of the only teams that was in that 6th zone when it actually showed. So, you know, that game was also very, very good for them, staying in top 4.
Yeah, Malibuka and Thomas as well, a fragging duo. We saw them with those pulse rifles. Unbelievable. I think Thomas HD had 8 eliminations at one point. I was losing count by the end of this game because, of course, we saw Thomas HD doing so well throughout the mid-game and the early stage of the end game to pick up as many of those eliminations as possible. And, of course, we saw Malibuka having to clutch up yet again at the end. He did a really good job with that, but all eyes have to be on Thomas.
There's actually a lot of trust in this duo. I saw actually a lot of times where Malibuka wasn't actually ADSing in with the pulse rifle, right? Which means that he was able to shoot a lot faster, apply a lot more pressure to some of these builds, and then Thomas was actually ADSing, waiting for an opening through a lot of these builds to actually get those shots to land. So that's why the eliminations are coming in. Malibuka was doing a lot. Thomas was just the one finishing those eliminations.
Yeah, and if there's anyone that you want by your side, finishing off the eliminations, getting those precise shots, I couldn't think of many other people than Thomas HD to do just that. That is where he is in his element, in his prime. And you mentioned it actually just before we came on here, Vivid. This ramp flip from Malibuka was absolutely perfect. Kept him alive for those few seconds longer.
There's a lot that actually goes into that, right? Because as you can see, he was facing one way. Obviously, when you pull those ramps out, they're facing upward. But he had to flip that around real quick, rotate it to make sure he stayed connected. Shout out to Malibuka. There's little details matter when it comes to these FNCS lobbies.
It's absolutely so wild. And, of course, we can't forget the duo sitting in 2nd place right now. It is none other than Trulex and Chicky. I mean, again, there's just a lot of these duos that are starting to kind of piece together what the meta looks like, right? They are making those adaptations. Now, once again, my question will always fall back to, can they keep up momentum, though, right? You've had 2 good games, great, but you're not the only duo adapting. The rest of the lobby is also adapting.
Yeah, 100%. I think if we've seen anything so far from these first 2 games, there's 8+ players when that last zone actually closes. So you have to be ready for the heal-offs. Teams that have been consistent, got to stay consistent.
Plus, Trulex, in his case, of course, these guys have been playing together for a long time. They know each other very well. That plays a huge factor in those endgames.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we don't want to keep you here any longer. Game number 3 is here. It is ready to go. So let's keep the ball rolling. This is the FNCS.
Game number 3 is here, and currently in the competition, it's the usual suspects in first place. Queasy and Vino hold that spot, but can they continue to hold it throughout the day is the question, Jake.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at them, and we're going to be looking at a lot of different teams, including Seti and Kami. A huge victory after that last game, but with missing round number 2 last week, not making it that far. This is a huge week for them. It may not necessarily be the week where they punch their ticket directly to our finals, but it's a week that's going to be so telling of how they get to play out week number 3.
Yeah, they're not careful with how the rest of these games go. They may be forced to play in Surge Week, and of course there is plenty of spots to be up for grabbing that stage, but they don't want to be playing there. They want to be calling straight to grand finals, and a top performance here and next week will be needed if that is even a possibility. But right, again, back to the racetrack, and we have Malibuka and Thomas up against Putrick and Toos. And that catches out Malibuka, starting this fight very low and might get caught out for it. He tried to run to the slurp truck, but it was not the right play. They were waiting for him. And so that leaves the mighty Thomas HD in a 1v2.
You can see Thomas. Yeah, as I say, Thomas is trying to break the slurp truck before Toos can go over and get any of the heals from it. Literally just seconds late. Now he's in a true 1v2. Back up against the wall. Very little loot to work with. A great shot from Putrick, picking up the combat that Malibuka left behind. Back-to-back shots at that. Thomas is finding it hard to fight back and hard overall. He goes down. That's Pootrick and Toos yet again victorious towards the racetrack.
It feels like a game of ping pong. You win, I win, you win. And we'll follow that story again in game 4. But over here, we have Nyrox coming out on top with Shadox against Default and Curb. Shadox in the final moments. Oh, sorry, my bad. Not coming out on top in the final moments. It was Curb and Default that win that. Over at Bastion, though. The usual suspects here winning. Vox and Kaizen not quite having as good of a game as they did in game number 2 or in game number 1, but here they will win out and get the chance to play for that vault again.
Kind of surprised they even fought over towards Brutal Bastion. There's so much loot for 2 different teams. His Teeny just goes, oh my gosh! All he got was the ODM gear, and just like that, he just terrorized his opponent, sent him back down to the lobby. Man, I've seen some plays before with the ODM, but nothing like that. Easy though. Veno, first place so far, 116 points. We honestly see Queasy a lot of the time. We join in on them. Uncontested Korkenjutsu. He's kind of looting up. He's making sure they get every scrap that they need. And you can kind of see what Veno's doing throughout it all. He's just kind of lurking around, getting information, figure out where these duos landed and where they're going to rotate to and from.
Yeah, Veno is the resident surge getter. Expect to see him playing aggressively onto teams on these extremities, trying to find opportunities to deal damage. And he's so good at that. Puts them in perfect positions to play the game the way they want to.
A little bit of elevation is all you need, even if it's hanging off the side of a mountain. Quickly building right back up, giving himself a little bit of a more sturdy foundation as he continues to put down shots. Multiple teams here in the lobby. Fakey and Fremont, do they know Fremont's here? This is going to be huge. I would expect Cairo to have some source of information peeking through the cone. Maybe he sees him there on the tail end. Oh, this is huge. They weaken the top of that cone, but Fremont gets attacked back. Very minimal damage from both of these teams. Uh-oh. Looks a little shaky there to try to get out of the box, and all it takes is one mistake, one misstep to do that much damage, forcing out some more heals. And you can see the patience on Kiro and Flodax. Not getting greedy, not putting it all into one play, picking and choosing wisely where they're going to peak and land some incredible shots so far in this exchange. Got to give it to Fakey and Fremont, though. The damage they've taken up until this point. Not backing down, but maybe taking 1 or 2 too many shots. Flodax having the high ground as well. They're pushing him back. But all he really has is that Cobra DMR, to where you have to be as accurate as possible if you're going to land any of those shots. But if you do, it does pack a punch.
A switch of pace towards the Bastion once again, where we're going to try and acquire as much as possible. Just trying to farm up some metal before claiming the POI and getting all the loot that comes with that. See their banners now firmly in place here, like it's been many of these games prior, and now a chance for them to take down the NPCs and pick up the vault key.
You see, Kaizen just, before they even attack, they just scout.
Yeah, Kaizen very aware that, right, the whole lobby knows that once that zone closes and the second zone, that they're going to have access to the vault, so making sure to scout around the POI, look for any teams maybe that were looking to get in on them and catch them out while they were taking it, but there was nobody there, so they'll just have a free vault.
You got to give it up, Cairo and Flodax, though. It looked like they were almost going to let their opponents disengage out of that, but sometimes when you see somebody running away, it almost like showing weakness, like they're scared to fight, and that's almost like a green light for some of these other teams to continue to advance and put down that pressure. But from one vault to the other, Shattered Slabs over on this side, a little bit more contested, a lot of teams towards the outskirts looking to either land some shots on them trying to escape the vault, or maybe go in for the scraps that are left behind.
And the good thing is, right, with the zone pool here, it gives a bit more time for these teams. We saw in previous games where when the zone didn't pull, everyone has to sort of rush their decisions. Nobody wants to sit in the zone for too long. Rather prioritize getting a good position in that zone for Hydro and for Strokey. Again, they're just going to be on this hill more or less every single time. This is the way that they get their surge. And opportunities are certainly there. They just have to hit the shots. There's also plenty of spare shields you get. There's so much loot in this area. I think this area of the map where they land is like one of the most highly dense sort of areas of loot. So there's a lot of spare shields that they can get. Oh dear, Zangi has not a clue in the world and gets punished completely for it. Down and out. Lucian Steno are waiting in the wings, and that's going to leave Zangi and Zara in a tough position as a duo. Oh, now as a solo, right? In theory.
Yeah, but luckily they're kind of like on the outskirts, away from everybody else, but the zone is going to continue to pull in that direction. As we jump on board, Trulex and Chicho got a tower in the sky, a penthouse on top of Mega City. Looking at everybody, trying to figure out how many teams are leaving the zone, who's left behind. Looks like every one of those POIs is the vault. Usually it's one of the last teams standing that possesses the key and kind of waits the last possible moment so they can kind of go through uncontested to gather that loot.
Back-to-back weeks where Jalen and Twy have qualified. Obviously spoke to Twy at the start of the day. And he seemed in good spirits, but they've not had the best first two games. They're gonna have to readjust, reform. And here you see the struggles that they're sort of having. Southfield, Frenzy Fields. Lots of players in this area. Lots of different teams. Dealing with the icy slide. Moving his way down, but every single different way he looks and turns, there's somebody ready to take shots at him.
Yeah, always finding consistency in the first two rounds to get to this point. But as we kind of described, season after season, final after final, these stacked lobbies are some of the hardest to kind of battle through.
And this is not the team you want to run into.
Not at all.
Queasy and Vino, the first place team. Unfortunately for Queasy and Vino, this might be the one fight where they aren't the fan favorites because everyone wants to see Jalen and Twy do well.
This one included. But you can kind of see the patience on both of these teams. Cash is going to unlock. And that's why Jalen and Twee are just moving closer and closer. They're trying to inch themselves that much closer to loot, but Twee takes a huge shot from the defensive Queasy, not wanting to let him closer to his precious loot, and that's where you kind of see him try to maneuver around, try to take a different route altogether and how to attack the situation.
Yeah, and Twy is definitely the stronger fighter within this duo, so you definitely want to see him on higher HP than what he currently is. On the other side of things, right, you get Venno and Queasy prospering for the loot. They claim the cash rather easily. And so they will have plenty to work with. And I'm sure Jalen and Twy will want to get their hands on that, but probably not going to be feasible with the way Queasy and Venno are playing.
Only way they get the loot is if Queasy and Venno let them get the loot. They try to disengage, rotate out early, just kind of leave it as scraps left behind. Game time being popped early. SKV and Vaken. Sometimes you have to make it towards the end game. We got Cosmo and Jay just immediately all confidence, continue to move forward, and down goes game number one VR winners. Showing that consistency truly is key, and you gotta be able to battle through 6 grueling games in our week 2 final to make it there. Just a quick reminder of how close the leaderboard actually is. 2 points separating first and second place. 30 points from 4th to 10th. But top 10 is kind of where you want to end on the day to get the maximum amount of series points for that leaderboard.
Yeah, of course you will be rewarded the higher up you are. Shamoki and Swizzy, they know what it feels like to taste victory in this round. They need to get back to their form from last week if they have any chance of repeating that again. And that's always going to be possible, right? We saw how prominent they were in those heel-offs over here towards the Citadel. They played things out very, very well last week. Well, they are running into some problems here with Creep and Cade, making things not as simple for them as they try and make their way to zone. They are aware that there's that team beneath them that they have to be careful of, and that team's actually going to look to go up. They want to take the fight, Creep and Cade.
take note of their timing. They did it at the same time to try to make it that much harder for the two different targets. And Coop is one of those players, we've ever seen him just make a highlight play on the day so far in a different 1v2, in a different game overall, kind of allows Cade to feel that confidence. But you can see towards the opening, so many teams shooting some shots, trying to make it that much harder for either one of those teams to survive as Rift Island finally shows itself.
And last game, we saw Thomas and Malabuka get their hands on the prized possession from this spot. And it led to them causing so much chaos in this game. Nobody was really able to brace themselves for it. This time around, though, they're not alive, they're not well. And so they won't be the ones to take it. It doesn't actually look like there's anybody really looking for it.
Nope.
But surely not for long, right? I don't think we've ever seen a game in any of these lobbies where nobody takes Rift Island. It's just too valuable to not have.
I agree, because even if you're not actually getting the overclock pulse rifles, there's so much loot still there. Even the vault at the bottom, the heals that come out of the capture point, a lot that is left behind. But we want to see where Cammy and Seti are coming from. They won that last game. How are they positioned to take this next, Taco?
Look, Jacob, the analysts were already talking about it. Cammy and Seti need to come up huge here in week number 2, so controlling Frenzy Fields seems to be their priority because they managed to take the POI with the capture point, but now for Cammy, he builds up, but he gets right back into all of the chaos. He actually attracts a lot of attention from a bunch of these other teams hanging out in Frenzy Fields, eats some shots, and resorts to just falling back over to Seti, but it's clear they're trying to be proactive. They're trying to create some placement points for the leaderboard.
Seeing a huge change up to their game. A team that's kind of known for passive gameplay throughout the first couple of zones, but they know how to drop it and switch it up at the drop of a dime. We're going to be looking to see if they can solidify a top finish on the day, because they're one of the teams without making last week's weekly final. They're going to need a huge placement here in order to go into week 3 with some sense of stability when it comes to that leaderboard. Otherwise, they're going to need a top finish in week 3 if they don't get one here.
And even if they're not able to get one here, a top finish would only really get them a chance to play Surgery, right? This is a duo that wants to be qualifying straight for the grand final.
Especially since Surgery can be so volatile.
Yeah,
For some of these
win a
teams,
game.
win a game, get on the leaderboard. Sometimes your focus is so split on both of those win conditions, you forget to focus on one to be exact. So it's not a position, even if you're an FNCS Invitational champion, you want to find yourself in.
There you go. Finally. Finally,
Still
someone taking it.
uncontested in zone.
Yeah? It's free?
Not even the rifts at the bottom are being fought for.
I bet you wish you were in this lobby right now, right?
I feel like this is one maybe I can get top 25. I can get some placement points.
Wishful thinking from Jacob here. Well, Miniminer was roasting us saying we couldn't call through round 1. He's probably right, but you didn't have to say it.
I believe in myself. I believe in you.
I believe in us, and I believe in Mr. Savage and the deal. Fan favorites in this lobby. And it's also impressive, just again, the consistency that we saw from them last week. Continuing today. Cammy, though, putting in that work until he was taken down. And Seti also went down moments before him. And so the winners of that game, Tackle came in and updated us on what they were trying to do in terms of trying to find control over towards Frenzy. Unfortunately, they're just going to have to control themselves in the lobby and wait for the next game. This is not going to be the one for them. And that's not what they needed at all. You were talking about it, Jacob. They have to have an absolutely amazing day today if they have any hope for automatically qualifying for the grand finals.
They did so good, moving up 13 places after they got that VR. Where they fall after this one is going to be real telling for the second half of the day, how they have to play. So they might have forced their hand, but maybe not. As Perceive and Crazy just trying to put shots off into the distance. They know another team is nearby, but they're 800 above the damage threshold. Simply need to stay alive, and that's why you see the quick disengage, but almost in 2 different directions before everything gets recorrected. Right back on course, and what a beautiful play to kind of recorrect that one, because now they're that much closer to zone, if not already in it.
Yeah, and Perceive and Crazy are a very fun team to watch. We know how passionate they are. But unfortunately, when you're up against Bad Sniper and DKS, it's always going to be a hard fight, especially with how down below these guys are on Surge. They're going to be desperate. They're going to be eager. It's up to Perceive and Crazy to keep their cool, keep their nerve, and not allow them to play at the pace of DKS and Bad Sniper. Let these guys walk into your hands, walk into your crosshairs, and take them out at their weakest moment.
Not let their shields get drained, though, even if Storm Surge is playing so much of a role here, because as soon as Perceive and Crazy hear that those shields get cracked, that's going to be a huge telling point of where they're at in this fight. And probably a huge turn of pace going from defensive to offensive, especially knowing they're 800 above the damage threshold. DKS and Bad Sniper falling even further down below without putting out any damage. Everybody else, because they're stuck in this fight right now against Crazy and Perceive, are just bypassing them when it comes to zone, making it that much harder for their survival. And that's why you see Bad Sniper trying to take that additional angle, forcing Crazy down low. But for Crazy and Perceive, patience is key.
And they know that their opponents are desperate, so they can't allow it to play into their hands. Crazy with big damage there, and Perceive to waltz on through to finish off the job. Nicely done. And again, I told you they're passionate. And you can see Crazy getting hyped. That's what I love to watch in this competition. That's what they live for.
Shout out to everybody sharing their cams to be a part of this amazing broadcast. I love seeing what you're talking about. The passion just oozing from a lot of these players. It's just kind of contagious here. Throughout the course of the game, we've seen Mr. Savage and Video go through so many different high and low moments. But they've been through everything in their journey to this year. Chapter 4, Season 2. They faced contested fights. They faced moments where their back's up against the wall, just like Queasy and Veno here. So many teams nearby, different elevations. They're able to take down Coop, back-to-back at that. A full wipe as they try to claim all that loot as their own. Just hoping for splashes, though. That's going to be the biggest key for a lot of these teams for fighting off heal-off, is splashes, which it doesn't look like they found any.
In a situation here, Sined and Irazumi, where they're going to have to make a bit of a move on to get to zone, but you can see around them there's a bunch of different teams. So they'll have to plan this carefully. They've already had to pop their pizza in this game. And it looks like they both have spare slots where they're going to just sort of split the pizza, allow both players to have the heals to move forward in this game. This makes things even more challenging now. Down below on Surge, they have to deal damage. Tried to wait there to see if that team would move ahead of them, but the shot didn't quite line up. And now, just taking shots at the lobby who are all trying to hold them in. This is a very tough spot. If you're Irazumi, you're hoping nobody looks at you anymore. Has to stop and use some pizzas.
Immediately his teammate goes in and trying to hold the wall, play defensive. Sined just trying to get good out, reposition. Irazumi's just hot on his heels. But they didn't necessarily get to pick and choose the perfect spot. It's only what you can get here in this situation, and they're smushed. It's such a bad spot, and that's why you see them trying to go up this mountain, put themselves in a little bit more of a cozy position. But the shots, no matter if they're up the mountain or below, continue to rain in. They become the focus. They spot some loot on the other side, but it can be a trap. Irazumi just takes a huge shot, and now they're suffering the consequence of Storm Surge as well. Sined is down, back up against the wall, can only take one more tick. Pizza's gonna be found, but can he just take a bite? No, he just doesn't get the chance.
Surrounded by the whole lobby, but no damage opportunities to be had. They fall at the hands of Storm Surge. And we may see another player victim of that as well. It's Vico alive. They land all the way at Slappy Shores, but throughout this game, they haven't quite been able to deal enough damage. And right here, it looks like Vico might just get dunked on by the rest of the lobby. Falls at the wayside, and his loot won't even be able to be picked up by anybody because everybody has to make a move on.
Looked like a child's movie with a monster underneath his bed, grabbing at his feet, sucked him underneath. As Veno's gonna go down, and the horrors continue. As Queasy is just trying to separate himself from everybody else, but he's the focus of the lobby. A lot of his hard mats being expended. being left with very little, but Queasy knows how to resource management. He knows the situation with all this pressure finally slowing down. It's giving Queasy a chance to breathe and rethink in this situation.
But another game, Jacob, where Queasy has to play it out as a solo. Did incredibly well in game 1 in this circumstance, but will he do it again? There is a team close by he has to be worried about. But there's also loot that he has his eye on. Oh, he's found an extra slurp. Okay. That's nice. That might make the difference. And he's going to drop that big pot for the slurp as well. Wise decision. 3 mythic slurps for Queasy to use. Shamoki and Swizzy, the team that we saw win 3 games last time we were watching these qualifiers. And here in game 3, maybe a chance to win another. Queasy going down in the feed, unfortunately. And that's at the hands of his former teammate. Jacob Hen takes him out.
A little bit of bragging rights right there. A boast of confidence. And a huge amount of loot found, because you saw what Queasy had him just moments ago. And for Hen and Paco, that's a huge find, because now Paco's back on up. That extra slurp juice was instantly used. That's 7 eliminations, and you can see Swizzy and Shamoki with their tower in the sky. They're almost going to go through uncontested if nobody looks up.
But they've got to be careful, right? Floor, ramp, wall to build their way on up. When Queasy and Veno did this last game, they got chopped out, so have to be wary. But they will use this position way up in the sky to try and take everybody down.
Story though, I like this story here. 48th place in round 2, barely squeaking through to get another shot at the weekly finals. And before this game even came in, they were into the top 10, fighting for more, and another elimination is going to be found. You can see all the loot that lands in the box, a huge pile of gold, figuratively and literally speaking, as Vidil's going to collect it all. 9 splashes, definitely going to be the player of his duo to play that heal off.
Crazy and Perceive, we've seen them throughout this game, and they're not done yet. Perceive moving on through, trying to get to the right side of the zone, and base up, down, below. You can see they move on to low ground.
Trying to stay ahead of everybody else. They have the time to do it as the zone does begin to catch up. Flodax, I don't know where Hen was able to find that one, as he was a flying saucer going through the sky with Kinetic Blade. You got to take note for a lot of these players, once they Kinetic Blade forward and upward through the zone, they try to land on a high layer, but not high enough to challenge Swizzy and Shamoki, and that's why you see nobody really looking up. I'm getting that sense of deja vu because they dig into their bag of tricks for week 1, and it's looking like it's paying off.
But the deal and Savage up alive together are such a threat in this game. You can see they're trying to drop down to low to find the limbs, and that's what they'll do. Picking up one there and looking for even more as they knock on this wood wall. Need to get out of the way though as they get stuck beneath some builds. And they're moving up and over ahead of everybody in the zone. Vidil catching up to Savage.
A lot of damage going to be taken by the Storm though. Hen and Paco, ever since they got that elimination onto Queasy, it's been smooth sailing, but I might have cursed them. They both get beamed out of the sky. Paco just has a sliver of HP. Hen looking a little bit more safe, but both of them, that slurp juice is being popped out a ton earlier than they would have hoped. 11th zone, 1 more to go. Crazy's going up, down, left, right, and center before he finds his spot. He has a Mythic Havoc pump, so anybody dares enter his box, better watch out because he has 1-shot potential.
Crazy moving forward. Hen still alive and still hitting big shots. That's his 7th of the game, and a med miss found as well. It might not be enough to compete with the heal-off gods in this lobby, but it will be enough to keep him in this game as other players start to fall. Savage and Vidil, they've spotted someone in the zone they want to take out, but they may have to be careful with the players in the storm, in the zone, in the layers above them, pushing their way through. Vidil takes down Hen, and they're going to keep on looking for a limbs now.
That was a huge find at the perfect moment. Trying to get a little bit of a refresh, but Crazy has nothing. Shambles, no mats, but a chance to get the 1 pump, and he does! Crazy takes that one, trying to turn and burn, but his run comes to an end. But Skydude's trying to take the high ground, and he goes down! 8 splashes and a pizza!
He needs Shakos to find his loot. We saw them win a game last week, but it won't quite happen here. Put to a stop, put to an end. Swizzy and Shamoki, not on height anymore, but still trying to find a win here. Vidil tried to connect Bait his way into the zone, and now not taking any 6. He doesn't have the healer potential though. He needs a miracle shot, and now it's not gonna come for him. He will fall, and so not many players left alive. Blatcher does have pizzas, he does have a slurp, and he has a chance to win this heal off. It's Shamoki though in this game, and all these heals he saved are up above here on height. Will there be enough to fend off Blatcher in this 1v1?
Looking like it is going to close out just like we do. The last bit of pizza is being scavenged up by Blatcher. Another Slurp Juice is going to be finished off. Shimoki doing the same thing, mirroring each other here, but with only 2 slices of pizza left, it could be Shimoki's for the taking.
Shimoki has the upper hand. But will he have the Storm Sickness advantage? Blatcher's running out. He doesn't have anything left in the tank. And so Shimoki will do what they did last weekend, where they won 3 games, starting here, picking up 1.
Yep, and it goes to show once again, any lobby late into this game that doesn't have Queasy, that doesn't have Veno, just leaves it opening for any one of these teams to steal it away. And in back-to-back games, the team that had the high ground in those late zones wins the game.
But look, this isn't just some scavenger team that picks up the scraps from Queasy and Veno. These guys are top dogs. You saw the way they set up for hype. They played it from early, and they held on to it so well throughout. Nobody could really do anything about it, and they win the game as a result of it. The formula that was picking them up games and wins last weekend is clearly still working here with the new zones. They are on one right now, one of the top teams in the region. Everybody should be worried about these guys.
Yeah, without even pausing in that final moment, you saw Swizzy land some huge shots with the red eye and go down to try to finish off any player trying to play that heal off. Not only do they have that perfect scenario, they're playing their roles absolutely pristine.
These guys have been on point. They are one of the best teams to watch if you want to learn anything about the game right now. They have everything down to a T, and the best people to break down all the things that are working for this duo are the analysts. So let's send it back to Zeke.
Thank you guys so much. Game number 3 here in EU was crazy. For a moment there, it was just all-out chaos.
I mean, yeah, that game went on for a while as well in the end game there. But shout out to the teams, right? Making sure they had all the heals necessary to kind of keep that one going. But the thing that I like the most, right, there's a lot of eliminations that were kind of going through in that end game.
Yeah, there was. It was really crazy, but ultimately it was the preparation that was done from Swizzy and Shimoki early on. Look at this, 9th zone already cranking all the way up to high ground because look at their loot. They have those 2 slurpes, they have those chug splashes, they have everything that they need to close out the game. And look at this, beautiful beams from Swizzy doing what Swizzy does best. He's done it again. Incredible.
Wow, do not let this duo on the high ground. You know what was funny, right? Minnie was looking at these guys on the high ground. He was like, listen, guys, if I was in this lobby, I would definitely be chopping them right now, which is probably why you wouldn't place in this sort of lobby. You get a little distracted.
Yeah, that's why I'm not in it.
But this team, of course, being allowed to stay up here, I mean, you can see the shots coming through. You cannot let these players have this sort of free reign and kind of just expose yourself to their angles.
I mean, look at that from Swizzy as well. He actually dropped those chug splashes late on. That's why we saw Shimoki going down. At one point, I was like, Shimoki, mate, what are you doing? You're going down all the way, and he knew better than us. He knew that those 2 stacks of chug splashes were there, that he could, of course, keep those heals going, because when you're healing off, you don't know how much the other heals, how much heals the other player has.
Exactly.
So it's like, how much do I need to go here? Do I need to go all the way? Do I need to go all the way down? And ultimately, didn't matter, because they won anyway.
So wild. Once again, this is why these guys talked about understanding, right, how to utilize those resources, how to say exactly what you need. And for this duo, they find themselves a victory royale here in game number 3. Now, of course, I think we have to ask the question, what do the standings look like? Now, this is going to give us a pretty good picture of what we can expect going into the next little bit here. Vadil and Mr. Savage jumping up, saying, all right, friends, let's play.
Wow. I mean, you know, kind of finishing out there, 3rd place that game as well. So shout out to that duo. But Trulex also staying up there, 2nd place, holding on to that spot. Been there pretty much all day. Unfortunately for Queasy and Veno, dropping down a couple of places.
Yeah, a little bit of a drop for those guys, but Qlash are crazy and perceive those guys moving up 5 spaces as well. I saw them celebrating an Elim earlier on in the game. They are passionate right now, and they're looking good. But of course, we can't forget to mention Vadil and Mr. Savage all the way up on top. We have to have a look at their highlights and some of their gameplay from this last game because it was beautiful, and I'm really impressed with this duo's consistency. I wasn't sure whether they'd be able to do it, especially with their drop spot. How are they going to manage Surge? But at the moment, they're answering all of the questions that I had of them.
Vadil is somebody that you can kind of tune into, right? And he's looking one direction. He's kind of like assessing the situation in front of him. And then all of a sudden, he's like somewhere else completely, but he knows exactly what's going on over in that position as well. Like, he is so fluid with every single decision he makes. I mean, look at this, right? Finds an elimination, backside his zone. It's like, oh, I know exactly where Mr. Savage is already, and I haven't even looked at him yet. It's like, how?
I mean, they're just 2 fantastic solo players. They know how each other play because they are so experienced. And I think when you put 2 players that know the game so well, have experience that is just a wealth of experience that nobody else can really match in this lobby, you just have to experience that. You have to, establish their experience because they know exactly what to do when they're together, even when they're not together. When they're separate, as you mentioned, Vivid, they're just on the same wavelength somehow. It's like they know where they are, but they don't. It's weird.
You used the word earlier, trust, right?
Yeah.
Knowing and trusting your duo. Say, look, you're going to operate best for us right now. Even if you're not with me, I trust you're going to do whatever you need to make sure we can climb up these standings. Let's take a look here. Trulex holding on to that second place, and this is kind of what we kind of touched on, is actually managing to play well enough to hold that spot because, like you touched on, Queasy Vino, they ended up dropping because of that. But these guys, they're holding strong.
Yeah, they're pretty much just consistently finding the layer that they want, right?
Yeah.
Playing that mid-ground layer pretty consistently. And this is something that we actually don't see a lot of teams do this season, is actually look for refreshes while these moving zones are kind of going on, right? But no, he's looking towards the back, making sure there's nobody shambas that he can kind of pick off. And I really, really like that for this duo. And obviously, it's working great.
It's working great, and they're able to find those consistent placements. Even before this game, we asked a couple of questions of them. Can they keep it up? Are they able to make this happen in the end game? And we're talking about their experience as a duo, how well they know each other, and this is absolutely where it's shining yet again. Of course, you can have big pop-off games with maybe new teammates, a little bit less chemistry, but when you have that chemistry, it's so easy just to keep games after games going because the mental's good, the vibes are high, and you can see it right now, sat in second place. I'm sure they're not too much higher than they can be.
Yeah, and of course, just a reminder, Swizzy and Shamoki did get themselves that victory out of 14 placements now in your top 4. Now, we wanted to just take a step back here. I don't know if you knew this, Coachella is actually going on. And you know what? None other than Jake Lucky has sent us a very special message. Check this out.
What's up, y'all? It's Jake Lucky here.